Hi everyone, so in today's video we'll be learning about two important operators that exist in JavaScript. The very first one is Nullish Coalescing operator and the second one is optional chaining. So let's go ahead and learn these one by one. So what Nullish Coalescing operator means is that if the value on the left side of Nullish Coalescing operator is either of the two, null or undefined, then it will return the value on the right hand side. So let's take an example. In this particular statement, what do you think will be assigned to the variable a? If you guess null, then that is the wrong answer because nullish coalescing operator will check the value on the left hand side, and as you can see the value on the left hand side is null, which is one of these two, and since it is one of null or undefined, nullish coalescing operator will basically return the value on the right hand side. That is, this string will be returned and will be assigned to the variable a. Let's go ahead and see another example. In this particular example, what do you think will be assigned to the variable b? If you guessed the answer 42, then that is the wrong answer because, as I said earlier, nullish coalescing operator only cares if the value on the left hand side is either null or undefined. It does not assign the value or return the value from the right hand side if the value on the left hand side is false. So in this case, as you can see, 0 is there on the left hand side, and 0 in JavaScript it is treated as false. But still, nullish coalescing operator won't really work over here because it only cares if the value on the left hand side is either of these two. So it will simply return 0 and 0 will be assigned to the variable b. Let's go ahead and see another example. In this case as well, since false is none of these two values, it will directly be assigned to variable c, and we'll see a log over here. In this particular example, we have empty string on the left hand side. An empty string is not considered either null or undefined, so it will directly be assigned to the variable d. Let's go ahead and see this particular example. What do you think will be assigned to the variable e? If you guess nan, then that is the correct answer because nan is neither null or undefined. So the nullish coalescing operator will never return the value from the right hand side, and nan will be directly assigned to the variable e and will be logged. In the final example, we have undefined on the left hand side and default string on the right hand side. What do you think will be printed over here? Here default string will be printed because undefined is one of these two values that nullish coalescing operator matters for. So basically nullish coalescing operator will check if the value on the left hand side is either null or undefined. If it is one of the two, then it will return the value on the right hand side. Let's go ahead and see answer for all these questions. Let me quickly run this. So as you can see, for the very first question, since we have null on the left hand side, default string is being printed, that is the right hand value is getting returned. In this particular example, 0 is a false value, but it is neither null nor undefined, so it will directly get assigned to b and is being printed. Same goes for false. And in this particular example, we have empty string on the left hand side, and that is again neither null nor undefined, hence we see an empty string being printed over here. In this particular example, nan is being assigned to the variable and being printed as well. And in this particular example, we have undefined on the left hand side, so default string gets returned, and hence f is equal to default string, and we see default string being printed over here. So this is about nullish coalescing operator. So if you are in any situation while building some project or some application wherein you think that the value on the left hand side could be null or undefined, then you can use nullish coalescing operator to basically return a default value in such cases, so that undefined or null doesn't get returned. So this is an example of how you can use nullish coalescing operator in your application. Now let's go ahead and understand the next operator, optional chaining operator. So I have this statement written over here. Let's go ahead and read this. The optional chaining operator accesses an object's property or calls a function. So we basically use the optional chaining operator to access an object's property or call a function. Now if the object accessed or function called using this operator is undefined or null, the expression short circuits and evaluates to undefined instead of throwing an error. So let's see what this means in an example. So we have this object over here, and inside this obj variable we have this key a. This key a is again assigned a value which is again an object, and inside this object we have this key b which is assigned a value 42. Now what we are trying to do over here is we are trying to access obj.a.b. So that is basically obj.a.b. So this particular value results in a value of 42. And then we are trying to access 42.c. Now since there is no property c on this number 42, this will eventually result in undefined. So this will eventually return in undefined. And then if I remove this optional chaining parameter for now, operator for now, we'll see that we are trying to access a function toString on this undefined value. And since toString function does not exist on this particular undefined value, it should result in an error. So that is what this particular statement said, that if object accessed or the function called using this operator is undefined or null. So basically this function, toString function, does not exist on an undefined value. So if we try to access it and try to print the answer, will basically be thrown with an error. So if I run this, you can see that we are being thrown with an error, and that error says cannot read property of undefined reading toString. So what this is saying is that it is trying to read the toString function property on this undefined value, but since this property does not exist, JavaScript is not being able to call this function, and hence we are being shown an error. So to resolve this, what we can do is we can basically use optional chaining. Now what optional chaining does is it says that if the function being called or the object's property that is being accessed is undefined or null, that is it does not exist, then it will short circuit this statement over here and return undefined value. Then it will basically return undefined. So let's see this in example. Let me revert back the changes. This is what we had initially. Now let's see what is going on over here. So object.a.b is 42, 42.c is undefined, and since toString function does not exist on undefined value, using optional operator will basically return undefined value overall. So if we go ahead and run this, we'll see that undefined is being written. So this is how you call a function using optional parameter. Now let's move to the next example. In this particular example, we have this object called adventurer, and this has a key name, this has a key cat, and this cat key is assigned to a value which is again an object with a property name. Now what we are trying to access over here is adventurer.dog.name. Now if you look carefully, adventurer object does not have this property called dog, so there is no dog property inside it. So basically this value is undefined, and what we are trying to do is we are trying to access the name property of this dog object, but this property does not even exist. Basically it is null or undefined. So again we are trying to access a property of an object that is null or undefined, and hence again optional chaining operator will come into the picture, and it will evaluate this entire expression to undefined. So let's go ahead and see this. If I run this, we'll see that undefined is being printed. If I remove this optional chaining operator from here and call this again, we'll see that we get an error, that name property is trying to be read from an undefined value because dog does not exist on adventurer object. So this value is undefined. Adventurer.dog is undefined, and we are trying to access a property name on an undefined value. So this is how you can use optional chaining operator to basically call a function or basically try to access a property of an object, and if that property or that function is null or undefined, then the entire expression will eventually evaluate to undefined, and instead of throwing an error, you will basically see undefined. So this could be like very useful if you're trying to fetch data from an API and you think that some property on that object or in that data exists. So what you can do is you can use optional chaining operator to access the properties of that object, and in any case, if that property that you're trying to access does not exist, then there won't be any errors in your code. You'll just be simply returned with an undefined value. What you can also do is you can combine the nullish coalescing operator with the optional chaining operator. So what you can do over here is you can do something like this. Now let's see what is being done over here. We are trying to access this dog property of adventurer object which is undefined, and then we are trying to access the name property of that undefined value. So optional chaining operator will come into picture and it will say that this property is undefined that you're trying to access. So I will eventually change this entire expression to undefined, and then nullish coalescing operator will come into picture and it will say, since the value on the left hand side is undefined, I will return the value on the right hand side, and hence dog name variable will be assigned to a value of default and that should get printed. So let's go ahead and see this and see if that gets printed. If I run this, you can see default is being printed on the screen. So this is how you can use nullish coalescing operator and optional chaining parameter operator to basically handle null and undefined value and basically return fallback values. So this will really help you in your projects and applications. I hope both of these operators are clear to you, and if you have any doubts, do let me know in the comment section. I'll be happy to clear them, and see you in the next one. Thank you.